All right, I'm here today with Lori William. Lori, welcome. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Keaton, for having a Canadian on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's great to have you. So we've worked with a lot of practices that Lori works with. She's been amazing, really helped us break into that Canadian market, and some of our most successful clients have come through her. So we're super grateful to her. And today we wanted to interview her because she's got a lot of wisdom that we don't have here. You know, we can implement the marketing services, but there's a lot of stuff that Lori knows that can help doctors not only in Canada, but all over the world. So Lori, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction on yourself, your background in ortho, about Strategix, the company you work for, and yeah, just give us as much information there as you'd like.
Absolutely. So I've been born and raised in a dental family. I grew up and my father was a dentist. My mother ran his practices for many years. So I feel that dentistry is, I guess, part of my blood. And that being said, when I was 14 years old, I was the one of confirming appointments and learning kind of the background activities of running a successful practice. So fast forward, and I started in orthodontics in 1992. So without aging myself, yes, that's almost 30 years. And about 12 years ago, I joined Strategix, which is a practice management consulting here in Canada. And we focus on all dental professions. And my main focus has been orthodontics. So I focused on, marketing with practices, the new patient process, the scheduling template processes, and efficiencies. So that being said, since COVID, I have also had the opportunity to pivot our business and the foundation of what we do. And that being said, we are now available to practices worldwide through digital platforms such as Zoom. And I'm really excited about talking with Keaton today, because a lot of my practices up here have been using their platform with OrthoPatients, and it's generated some amazing results and on that digital platform, which I think is very critical in today's rapid changing world of orthodontics, which I think is what we're going to get into. So back to you.
Awesome. Yes. And I love that you said that, because last year, I remember right when COVID hit, we bill, the way our billing works is that we have the 1st and the 15th, which is typically when most of our clients pay us. And I remember we billed on the 15th, and on the 17th, everybody shut down and everybody was freaking out over here. We didn't know what was going to happen. The whole world was up in arms. And then I think about 2 weeks later, we were like, oh, like everyone's spending more time online. Our ads are actually going to get better results. We're going to have more doctors coming to us for these services. And ever since then, the business has just grown, which is incredible, but it's also been cool to see the doctors make a similar pivot and see that the digital platforms are where we need to be. Yeah.
Completely agree. Yep.
So today we want to talk more about these trends, right, Lori? Orthodontic marketing trends is in 2021. What happened in 2020? How is that affecting it right now? And how is that going to affect the specialty, 5-10 years into the future? So the first question I want to go over here is, what have you seen or observed in the practices you've worked with since they closed and then reopened last year?
All right. Well, our magic day was March 12th of 2020. That's when the world here in Canada came to an end regarding COVID. So what I have seen since then has actually been incredible, super, super positive. Every single one of my practices has recovered brilliantly from the shutdown, and production has been super strong since June in all offices. And when I say super strong, I mean consistently record-breaking months. And, every month that would come, we would think, okay, what's going to happen next month? And what's going to happen the following month? And production has just stayed strong. You think it's partly because of the backlog or partly because all those patients that weren't comfortable coming into a practice, but the strength has continued. And part of that has been, the marketing, part of that has been pivoting the practice to a digital platform. But it's been great seeing that positive cash flow and seeing that positive production and patients coming in, wanting to start, willing to start, and when they come in after they've had that virtual consult, they're committed. So it's like it's really streamlined that process in the practice, because now we're not seeing, 5 new patient exams in a day, for instance, and 2 of them proceeding. We're seeing 5 new patient exams in the office that are there or virtually. And when they come into the office, 4 out of those 5 are proceeding into treatment.
Got it. It's like bump, set, spike, right? So the virtual consult,
Absolutely.
and then you just come in and spike it when you're in the office. Really cool. I haven't thought about it that way, but it seems like you said, the streamlining process. I spoke with a doctor yesterday who said, he's like, all right, they're using our follow-up services, and he said, all right, we need like this and this question, we need to ask all these different questions so that when they come in, they're just ready. And we have that same day start. And I was like, I love your system. I love the process that you have in place. So I'm interested to hear more about what you've done with your offices to set up that. So when they just come in, it's a home run. It's a slam dunk.
So I find that the offices that have really been successful since reopening, they're the ones that took that 8 weeks and really focused on their business and the platform and how they can utilize digital technology to enhance their patient experience and to be more efficient internally. Mm-hmm. And those are the offices that are now almost using their virtual exam as somewhat of a screening process, because ultimately the patients are looking for 3 things. They want to know how much, how long, and what are you going to do? So if we can give the patient those 3 things during that call, or that video, which is also beneficial because it's taking significantly less time to get the patients the same information versus most offices book, let's say 60 minutes for a new patient exam. I'm finding virtually 30 minutes is tons of time. And, it's an opportunity for the treatment coordinator or the financial coordinator or whoever that person is, as you said, to tee up the doctor. The doctor's actually coming on site or coming into the call or coming onto the video and making that introduction. Ideally, we have some photos from the patients, but not necessarily all the time. And that's exactly what we're giving the patients, is the information for, that they're looking for. As I said, those 3 things. And the patient now has that information. The financial coordinator then closes with going through, what the investment's going to be, what the payment options are. And, for that matter, sending all the paperwork digitally for the patient to sign, return, and they're coming back into the office for their records, their exam, and essentially their scan to start treatment.
So cool. And you said, remind me what it is again. How much, how
much, how long, and what are you going to do?
Nice. And so that's what you coach your TCs on, right? And then the doctor, so the TC's in there for 20 minutes and then the doctor comes in for the last 10, or how do you coach your doctors in that respect?
I would say for virtual, because again, I find that appointment or that process moves a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. So internally, yes, it might be say 20 minutes with the TC prior to the doctor coming in, but virtually it's a lot quicker. When you are on a phone call or when you're Zooming with somebody, 5 minutes is a long time. So you really do want your doctor to be paying attention and to be completely aware of that schedule so that when that Zoom call is live, they're ready to hop onto that right away. So I'm finding 5 minutes is kind of, 5 minutes, we don't really want to be going past that 5 minutes because there's a lot that you can talk about, but ultimately they're there because they want to find out the 3 things that we talked about. So as soon as the doctor hops on, it just makes that Zoom just push forward naturally without getting into that awkward zone because it's what else do I talk about? But the other great thing about Zoom is, or any digital platform for that matter, is you are now connected into their personal world. So these people are sitting in their kitchen or they're sitting in their living room or they're sitting in their home office. And if you're paying attention, you see that there's a family photo here. You see that there's pictures of family members on the wall. What a great opportunity to say, so it looks like you have some other kids in the family. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your family and the siblings that you have? And that just opens up the door for potential more referrals. Yeah. And you've got to ask about those referrals. And I'm finding that if you're paying attention is a huge opportunity with the whole virtual platform, that if you have a solid TC and somebody's super competent and confident, they're going to be tapping into that. And it's huge.
Really cool. And can you speak to, I've heard a lot of people are worried about these Zoom consults because they want that wow factor when they come into the office. Like, oh, you walk in and the colors are bright and the team's so nice and it's so clean. So what do you do? What do you coach your teams on that in that respect? How to have a wow factor on their Zoom consults?
Well, the wow factor is being there on time.
Mm,
So people respect your time, people respect our time, and their time is just important as our time. And so, number one is you be on that call 3 to 5 minutes ahead of time. And even if they're not on there, at least you're there and you can hear them so that when they do enter that room or get onto that Google Meet or Zoom call, that you are ready. So, that's number one. Number two is the laughter that I hear from good or with good TCs and these people that are on these virtual consults coming from the computer and coming from the screen is incredible because they just seem to be more comfortable. They're in their own environment, so it's just more natural
mm.
and they're just engaging in a conversation. It just seems to be a lot more relaxed. You know, there's kids coming and going, there's babies screaming in the background. It's just like, oh, I'm sorry, my husband's not here today to help me with the kids or blah, 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 blah. The other great thing is now both decision makers have the ability to be on that call. So you're getting less of the whole, well, I need to go home and talk about it with my husband, or I need to go home and talk about it with my spouse.
That's a good.
So that whole wow factor is, I truly believe it is not lost with this digital platform that a lot of offices are implementing. And now you have the opportunity to take that a step further so that when they come into the office for their physical appointment, that's when they see the amazing team. That's when they get to see, well, they're not seeing your smiles because it's behind the mask, but that's when they see how punctual you are, how your processes, whatever those processes and protocols that you have regarding your state or your province that you're in right now, in terms of these people coming into your office into a safe environment. I feel that we can just make that connection and make that wow factor. We have that opportunity to do it yet again.
Really cool. I love that. The first thing you said really stuck with me about being on time is the wow factor. And there's so many, you're right, there's so many different opportunities that you have via a virtual consultation that you don't have in person, which blows my mind. I wanted to make this comment earlier, so I'll just say it because it's been in my head this whole time. But so I spent 2 years as a missionary in Washington, D.C., and we'd have like dinner with the members of our congregation, right? And sometimes we'd ask like, oh, do you know anyone that needs help in the area or anybody that would want to visit from us? They'd be like, oh, no, like we don't know anyone. But when we asked, oh, do you have any family in the area? And then that would open up. Oh, they'd be like, oh yeah, my sister lives, over just on this street. And then we'd say, oh, could we go visit them? And at that point they'd let us in. So I think that that's the same concept there, because they go in, if you ask point blank, hey, do you have anybody else that wants to start treatment tomorrow? There's a lot of people who are going to say no. But if you're like, oh, look at that family photo, do you have any like cousins or anybody else in the area? And all of a sudden you've got this network, and just a natural way to ask that question. I love it. It's so cool.
Absolutely. And you're also, those questions, you're making it about them, and people ultimately want to talk about themselves. So when you ask a general question that doesn't allow them to talk about themselves, you may not get the answer you're looking for. But when you make it about them, you're going to get it. They're going to be more engaging. 100%. It's like the D-band, the D-band opportunity. I say to offices all the time, this is a huge opportunity to ask for a referral because you make it about your patient. Johnny, you have been so fantastic and we've loved having you a patient at the practice and we're really going to miss you. Like, do you have any friends or family that are looking for orthodontic treatment? Because we would love to treat more people like you.
Nice.
So now you've given Johnny a compliment. You've also made it all about Johnny. So Johnny's walking out of there thinking that he's, Mr. Special Superman for the day. And he's going to go and say to his parents, or he's going to go and say to his buddy at hockey that night, you know what? I go to this orthodontist and they're fantastic.
Really cool. And I know we wanted to talk about kind of less appointments, like how less appointments can help a practice, but also how you can promote value with less appointments. So how does this fit into virtual at all? Or have you just seen that generally because of COVID?
I think I'm going to have to answer that question that I've seen it with the offices that have really taken their, taken the opportunity to pivot their business with a more virtual platform.
Mhm.
Retainer checks, observations, growth guidance, recalls, emergencies, huge. I mean, take a photo of what's bothering you. You know what? Our lead clinical team member is going to have a look at it, review with the doctor, and we're going to get back to you. And I mean, as I said, every province and every state is going through different things. I know here in Canada, there's some provinces that have had heightened restrictions enforced upon them. So in those scenarios, virtual has been huge. Now with, for example, Invisalign or clear aligner patients, instead of getting them in the office on 10 or 12-week intervals, at 12 weeks, they're booking them for a virtual check. They're also utilizing the software that Invisalign provides, and they are making sure that the patients are tracking. The patients are able to send those. They're sending in those photos weekly or every second week so that, somebody from the practice can be communicating with them. And whether it's the doctor or not, the patient just feels that they're being taken care of. If they have questions, they're getting a response. So when you talk about, well, how are we promoting the value? We're promoting the value because we respect your time. We respect your time, and we know that you have better things to do. You don't want to be coming into the orthodontic office, especially right now. That being said, we can do a lot of this from the comfort of your own home. How does that sound to you? And people love it. You're busy, I'm busy, they're busy. They don't want to be in here every 6 weeks. They just don't. So, the utilization of the technology is hugely, hugely beneficial and helpful to the practices. I'm also finding that doctors now are feeling that they're getting a little bit of life back. Their production is increasing. Their appointments in the office are decreasing. Their virtuals are still being added to the schedule during those patient hours. And, they're not seeing as many people in the practice. So their days are just a little less chaotic.
Mm.
And the people that are in the office, they're in a position that they can engage with them more because their patient volume is significantly less.
Really cool. It's almost like, well, there's a couple of things this reminds me of. One, I just bought a house, and so I've been like, all these random things you have to buy, like a broom and like plates and bowls and all that. And I've done some in-person shopping, but I've also just ordered a ton of it off Amazon. And it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I need this thing. And so I go to Amazon and I order it because I'm like, I don't need it today. I don't need it within the next 2 hours. If I did, I'd just go to the store. But I'm just going to order it off Amazon. It takes me 2 minutes, and then it arrives, in a week or less, sometimes 48 hours or 24 hours. And I have exactly what I need. So it reminds me of that. That's why Amazon's, the most valuable company in the world, or one of, because they're the most customer centric company in the world. They know what it's like to be a busy person, and they want to just fit everything into that schedule, which is really cool. But the other thing that I love about it, I think a lot about local versus digital business, right? So I run a completely digital business. My team members live in Texas and Arizona. I'm in Utah. I haven't met 3 of them in person ever. And we have a really cohesive relationship, but I can run this business from wherever, right? But an orthodontist has traditionally been very tied to time constraints, people driving, people in the area, but it almost even widens the amount of people that they can help, because if they only have to come in 5 or 6 times during their treatment, I mean, you could service somebody 2 hours away from you, and they could be super excited about it, right?
I think you've tapped into this whole other conversation that I think now doctors are starting to tap into, especially the doctors that have embraced this virtual, because now they're starting to think, okay, well, my number of visits in the office has just gone from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more profitable. I don't need that, that clinician in my practice anymore because I'm doing it virtually. And now that I'm only seeing my patients X number of times, I can now expand that network even greater because, of how my practice has changed and evolved over the past year. So I think you're absolutely right. And I think that we do need to look at companies like Amazon or Apple for that matter. I went into Apple 2 weeks ago. I needed a new iPad. So I went online and you had to book an appointment and it said, what are you interested in? And I said, the iPad. So when I showed up at my appointment time, it was like a 5-minute transaction. It
Really?
was in, it was out. They said, these are the colors that we have. This is the memory that we have. Which one do you want? Is basically what they did. I said, I'll go with that one. They're like, perfect, done, done, and done. And I had my purchase, I had my bag, and away I went. And you're absolutely right. It's the whole buying decision, the whole, making, allowing your patients to make buying decisions the way they want to, the whole convenience for that consumer is really got, I think, the whole profession thinking a little bit differently than we did even, a couple years ago. And I think that's been a positive that we've seen as a result of the pandemic.
Really cool. And it's not just geographic, it's also volume, because they can handle like less appointments means more patients overall, right? That's so cool. And less staff, more revenue. Like it's
Less
insane.
headaches.
Yeah, less headaches. Look at that.
Yeah, and I know I listen to podcasts all the time, and I know that everybody is struggling with staff right now, finding staff, retaining staff,
Yeah.
motivating staff. It's just that whole HR component of a practice is a huge reason. I have a business and I have a consulting company because that's absolutely not what doctors want to deal with for sure.
Yes. So tell me about, I'm interested in the aligner. Obviously, moving to more aligners is the way to go if you want to go more virtual, less appointments, all of that type of thing. But I've heard, there's all these doctors who are like, oh, the lab fees for Invisalign are a nightmare. And so I don't think there's a ton of doctors that do this, but I've talked to Dr. Tyler Coles in Arizona, who's like, we just actually cut out Invisalign because the lab fees are so expensive and we're more profitable on braces. So does that change just because the amount of appointments you're having, or can you speak to the lab fee discussion at all?
I can, and I feel those doctors' pain, absolutely. And I've had those conversations on multiple occasions with my doctors that are, wanting to go from, gold and they want to do more cases so that their lab cases decrease so that they can hit, they can hit their diamond, they can hit their platinum and their diamond. And it's a constant battle. And, you see those bills come in and, if my doctor or the doctor that I'm working with is really committed to making this happen, then I have to encourage them to keep pushing forward. I have to encourage them. It's just where I see the challenge with offices is when they're doing, say, 60% fixed or 70% fixed and 30 or 40% aligners. So you're essentially running two different style of practices within one. But you want the efficiencies of the aligner practice. And that's where I find it gets challenging because you still need all your clinical team because you have still such a strong fixed patient base in your practice. And you're still not at that level where you're realizing your lab discounts because you're not at that volume. So, you kind of need to keep pushing forward so that you can actually hit that sweet spot. But you really can't be making any changes to the team until you kind of push forward and you do start doing more, aligner treatment, because that's where your appointments are going to become less. That's where your visits are going to become less. And that's where you can start implementing some of those efficiencies and that will benefit in an aligner practice for sure. So I feel the pain and I hear it all the time. And I think that's where the doctor just needs to make that decision. But not to mention, Keaton, I totally agree with you. There are doctors that run a completely fixed practice out there, and they are ridiculously efficient and they are ridiculously streamlined, and they're still very profitable because that's all they do. It's what they do. They see their patients and they're just in and out, in and out, in and out. And I have to say that those practices work too. So it's just a little bit harder to, utilize more of a digital platform. You can still use it for your recalls, your observations, some of your new patients or your new patients. You can still use it for your emergency appointments. There's still ways you can implement digital, so there's less people coming into your practice. It's just easier from an active patient base with aligners for sure.
Got it. And so it's sort of like an all or nothing proposition in some ways. Like you've got to reach that critical level of we do 90% aligners, and then that allows you to have the mass, the volume of patients to go with the efficiencies that you're talking about, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Got it.
And I mean, I have a client that I work with, and she is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of your clients as well.
Yeah.
And she is, I'm going to say 97% Invisalign. And, she has multiple locations, and she is absolutely incredible at what she did and how she pivoted her practice over the pandemic and the utilization of technology. And she's just getting busier and busier. And, you see the efficiencies in that practice and what she's doing and what she's capable of doing, just because she's really implemented this technology, the utilization of technology. I have another guy that he committed to the same thing over the pandemic, and he spent his first 2 months post-pandemic debonding all of his fixed patients, putting them into aligners. And now, almost a year later, he's just like, wow, this is incredible where I'm at with my practice. It's a whole different practice style. But he absolutely loves it.
That's so cool. It's just all about finding your niche, isn't it? Like what fits you as your personality, I think, as the doctor, but then also what the people in your area and like just kind of what you know about your market. I always say no one can beat you at being you. And so if you get down, you just like define who it is you want to be, and then you go there and stop listening to like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, it just makes so much sense. It's like the rules that break the rules. A year ago, nobody would have said you can run, this profitable of a practice with this high of a patient volume, 97% Invisalign, and just absolutely crush it with virtual consults. And yet here we are. So
Right.
It's so cool. It's so cool. Tell me about one question I have, and maybe this is just really basic, but I think sometimes as an outsider to the industry, right? I have much less experience in the dental industry than you do. I ask simple questions that might be big questions in reality. So we'll see if this is an important question or not. But if I'm a patient coming in and I'm in my mind, I'm like, oh, I want braces because it's going to be cheaper. I know some offices it is cheaper. Some offices Invisalign is more expensive. Sometimes they're the same. What's the fee question discussion around Invisalign, and how do you, that client that we're talking about, how is it that she's able to push 97% of people into Invisalign? Is it just like, hey, this is your prescription, this is what we're doing, and it's the same price, or is it more expensive, or how does that work?
I think that is just the confidence that the doctor has when presenting what treatment plan is best for that patient. And then you do get the question from parents just saying, oh, the compliance thing, and then not wearing them and losing them at school, and just the concerns that any parent would have over a 9, 10, 11, 13, 15-year-old. I mean, for me, it was my 18-year-old trying to get him to wear his aligners. But it's I think that confidence and that belief from the doctor. I truly believe that the doctor needs to say, you know what, you are a perfect candidate for Invisalign. And you know what, you are absolutely going to love the results. And it's a great way to get the results that you're looking for, because it's not going to restrict your diet. You can remove your aligners, you can eat what you want, just go rinse your mouth and put your aligners back in. You're going to get in a habit of putting them in the case. You're going to hear your patients say, my teeth actually feel better when my aligners are in their mouth, and you know that they're wearing them. We all know that adolescents and young kids have better compliance than adults. The other thing is, when you're a really efficient aligner practice, we know that we have our patients' attention and they're completely motivated for, say, 12, 15, 16 months at most. And if you come out of the gate, whatever your practice style is, but I know a lot of doctors that load them up with their elastics, just give them everything right out of the gate when they're super motivated. And, you can see those results right away. Your patient is going to be motivated as well. So I think it all has to do with how we're discussing it and presenting it to our patients, because There will be the odd parent that says, no, I just don't trust Johnny with these aligners. And I truly believe that braces are going to be best for Johnny.
Mhm.
Yes, there are those people, but I think 9 times out of 10, we can, with the power of the belief and the power of the confidence, we can overcome that objection by promoting the benefits, especially the oral hygiene aspect in any kid, the ability to take those aligners out, brush and floss your teeth, put those aligners back in. And I mean, I've had kids both in aligners and fixed, and I will say that the aligners was so much easier from that perspective. Just and even through COVID, the child that I had in aligners, yes, he was wearing his aligners and the teeth were going. The child that was in braces, he had a couple broken brackets. I was clipping his wires, making him comfortable, and there was nothing that we could do for 12 weeks. That's where it was.
Mm. Yeah, fascinating. And I just think there's so many benefits to, I mean, me, I'm in my 20s, and if I go to an orthodontist, I'm like, oh, I want to straighten my teeth, and they say you can come in, once every 6 months if you need to. Otherwise, we're getting on Zoom meetings. I can do a 15-minute Zoom meeting. They can look at my teeth. They can mail me the aligners, which I've heard some doctors doing. Like, I'm all for that, all for it. Because it saves, not only does it save time, but you're right, the results can be better. And like, I think there's just myths that are out there, and as long as the doctors are confident enough in dispelling those myths and helping the doctors, or helping the parents and the patients realize that they can do it, and then, like you said, like hitting on that motivation when it's high, all of those things combine just to make it a no-brainer.
Yep, I agree.
Really cool. So let's talk about some other, just like, marketing advice from you.
You're the expert. Why are you asking me that?
So I know you wanted to talk about patient reviews. We talked a little bit about internal referrals. Um, is there anything else that you coach your doctors on marketing wise that you can just share in a few minutes?
Sure. I would say the number one opportunity in orthodontic practices that I see are the internal referrals.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at a practice recently, and 96% of their new patients are coming from general dentists. Well, that's fantastic that you have that relationship with the GPs in your area. But for transitioning a practice and even thinking down the road, that's risky. If those GP practices are transitioning on their end, you may lose those referrals. If somebody wants to come in and look at your practice, will that goodwill and will those referrals be transferred? Will they like the new doctor that's buying the practice? So internal referrals, guys, you have worked your butt off. You have, created this amazing practice, this amazing team. You've built this reputation. You have earned it. If you are giving your patients what they're looking for, and if you are delivering and you are seeing your patients on time and you're finishing your cases on time and you're treating them well and all those good things, you have the right to ask for a referral. And nobody does this, because I get the feedback, well, I'm not a salesperson. That's not my job. I'm a clinician. Well, you know what? It is our job. And if we believe in what it is that we're doing, it should not be an issue to be asking your patients if they have friends or family that need orthodontic treatment. So that whole internal referral it's huge, and there's so much potential there. I say, run your report, see where you're at today, set some goals for that team, get them motivated, role play, give them some scripting, give them the tools to be successful, and make it happen. So internals for sure. We talked about Google reviews. We know that our patients are changing, and how they're making their buying decisions is very different. They may be referred to an orthodontic office by their GP, but they are absolutely going for a second and third opinion. You betcha. People are not charging for new patient exams. If they're doing it virtual, it's out of the comfort of their own house. So it's not a huge inconvenience. Go for that second or third opinion. And the first thing that they're going to look at is they're going to look online to see what people are saying about you. So those Google reviews need to be solid, and those Google reviews, you need to be watching them, and you also need to be asking your patients anytime they give you a compliment, if they would share that compliment online, so that other people in the area, in the community, in the profession can see that. So another thing, for flexible payment plans, the whole 25 to 35% is an initial payment. no longer happening. Guys, we need to be flexible. We need to offer our patients internal financing, be flexible on that. That's a huge one. Another one is your hours. I know that I completely respect my doctors and what they've gone through and the sacrifices that they've made in their life to be where they are today.
Mhm.
That is not taken away from me for a minute. But if we look at what our patients are looking for, they are also looking for convenience. So, the 9 to 5 orthodontic practice, Monday to Thursday, or, Tuesday to Thursday, that's ultimately not what your patients want. They do want evenings. They do want some Saturday options. You know what? It's just a mental game. You give it to them once a month, or you rotate your schedule. And 1 week you do a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The next week you do a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. At least you can say to your patients that you're there 5 days a week for them.
Yeah.
So those would just be a couple things that I would recommend right out of the gate. And, you can get into the rest, Keaton, in regards to OrthoPatients and what you do for your practices.
Yeah, just before we move on there, I love the point you made about hours. So in marketing, there's this thing called a USP, a unique selling proposition, right? And I think the thing most people get wrong about marketing is they're just like, hey, this is me, this is what I do, and they don't differentiate themselves in any way. And you just went over with the hours thing, how they can differentiate themselves then from everybody else in their area with changing their schedule 1 day a month. You can say we have Saturday appointments. It's only one Saturday a month, but they have Saturday appointments, right? And that completely changes the game for the busy mom that is completely packed all during, Monday through Friday. And so if they speak to all these things are their internal systems, but you just got to talk about them in everything you put out. Like put it out on your Facebook page. Hey, we have Saturday appointments available now. Friday evenings, whatever it is that you do, you've just got to talk about it and change those. Talk about the flexible payment plans, like you said. These things, not only do they make the sale easier, but they're what you need to be talking about in your marketing.
Yeah, I agree.
The thing I want to talk about and what I kind of heard as like a subtext to what you were saying about the reviews, about the hours, about the asking for internal referrals is all of this requires a doctor to have their team on board because the doctor can't be everywhere at once. And we mentioned it earlier, and I think we should probably close out with this conversation because it's the most important. What do you like? How do you help an office, a doctor, somebody that's gone? This is my view on the situation. Somebody's gone to, they're amazing at what they do. They've gone to dental school. They've gone to, done their specialty training, all of this. Orthodontists are some of the smartest people in the world. And they can't, but a lot of them I've seen can't wrap their head around hiring an amazing team that works for them and doesn't make working every day an uphill battle. But I know from experience, from my hiring experience, that when I get the right person on my team, it's the headaches go away. I'm able to actually trust them with the thing instead of giving the thing to them and then having to follow up a million times. So walk us through how do you hire an all-star team and how do you keep an all-star team motivated in your orthodontic office, especially during these times?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a real challenge right now in offices. I think that offices are burnt out. Admin is feeling that they're the ones that have to manage all the paperwork and all the consents and all the COVID forms and the temperatures and the screenings. So they're swamped on that end. And, the short notice cancellations with the parent calling in because the child has a runny nose or the child's close contact or in isolation and having to keep the schedule filled. Not to mention the clinical team, they're burnt out because, all the PPE and, just being on site and watching when they go into that aerosol room. And again, every province and state is different, but, they have to gown up, they have to put their hairnets on, they have to put their shields and their N95 masks. And it's a lot, and I think people right now are getting tired. I think they're just, they just want to have that interaction with their friends and their family again. And I think that's coming into the workplace. So we have some more challenges that are real around the hiring and the HR. And you said the one comment that you made, Keaton, was doctors finding a team to work for them. I think I would just recommend or suggest we just shift that mindset slightly. And instead of working for them, we're working together, we're working with them.
Hmm.
And I'm bringing on a team member, and if they're going to be admin, I want to get the admin people involved in that process. Because when you just plunk a personality in between the two people at the front desk and say, they look at you and they're like, where did she come from? She doesn't even have any dental experience. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Whereas if they're in the process and they, you narrow it down to say 3 to 5 candidates, and they have an opportunity to meet this person, ask this person questions, get this person in for a working interview, sit at the front desk and see how this person, interacts with them, interacts with patients, what initiative they take. Do they actually grab the mouse and start playing with the software and attempting to schedule a patient back in for the next appointment? Like, there's so much that you can learn even in 2 hours. And I feel that the buy-in that you get from the team, the existing team, with bringing new people on, when you get them involved, you've empowered them. And now they take ownership to wanting to make this person the best possible person, because they know that that person is there to work with them and to support them. And as you said, it makes your life a lot easier when you have the right team member. It's no different than for them as well.
Yeah. And how much of it is nature versus nurture? How much is it getting the right person, and how much is having the right system within your practice and doing these things that you mentioned? Can you take a, maybe a 6 or a 7 that you find that comes in and wants to work for your practice, seems good but needs some training, and help make them a 10? Or do you really need to hire those 8s and 9s and make them 10s?
I always say that we hire for personality and engagement and the ability to connect with people,
Mm,
because if they have that, we can train them on anything.
yeah.
And I have had such great success working with offices where people are coming in without dental experience. One of my best treatment coordinators all time, all time, came from telecommunications. She was selling cell phone packages, and she is an absolute rock star, and she can connect with anybody on a virtual consult. You can be the president of TELUS Communications or Bell Mobility, or
Yeah.
you can be, a teacher at a high school. You can be a stay-at-home mom, you can be whatever, and she will find some way to connect with you. And those patients absolutely love her. And when she comes in, when the patients come into the office and meet her in person, they're like, oh my goodness, you are exactly the way you were on our Zoom call, or you're exactly what I thought you were going to be.
Nice.
Wow, this is awesome. So I truly believe it's all about personality. It's all about that engagement and the people factor.
Yeah, it's so true. Because I mean, in my mind, I was like, okay, we're rating the people between 1 and 10, but it's really much more about what do they have that we can't train them on, and everything else is secondary. Like, it's just finding those things that you simply can't
Right.
find anywhere else, or you can't train on, or you could try, but it'd be an uphill battle for years. It's such a good point. It's such a good point. It's amazing. And then once you get the reason I use the phrase "work for you" is because I think there's so much value for a doctor, and there's so much leverage when they can train someone to do whatever they want them to do without interrupting them every 3 seconds and all of that type of thing. Like a team that works, yes, with the doctor, but somebody that just like that, like, hey, I want some internal referral. We need more internal referrals. This is what we're going to do. You give that to your team, and then they just run with it. That's what I would love to see every orthodontist have. And unfortunately, I think they don't. Is there any way, what's the training process like to make the current team that an office has willing and able and like getting that buy-in? Because you as a consultant, I'm sure you go in and the team's like, oh, another consultant's coming in, or this other thing the doctor hired people for. How do you get the buy-in from the team to participate in everything that's going on that the doctor, who's the owner of the business and has these employees, wants them to do, but they're not as motivated? How do you get the buy-in?
Well, I hope that there's usually one ringleader in every office, that kind of has that energy and those leadership qualities that people just know, okay, yeah, here she's talking again. We better listen. And I think the key is getting her on board or him on board to understand the big picture and, to understand the power of the profession and to get them excited, because when they're excited, they're going to bring their other troops, into battle for you.
Hmm.
And I also find that everybody is motivated very differently.
Hmm.
And what motivates this team does not motivate this team. And that being said, I do have some offices that do have different types of bonus systems in place that have worked very, very well. It's based on starts. We don't need to talk about production numbers. I mean, the team can figure it out, but it's just easy to track and you achieve what you focus on. So in the team room and you have a whiteboard and here we are and here's where we need to go. I do like to see quarterly bonuses as opposed to monthly bonuses for different reasons. But I have a lot of teams that are very, very motivated by that, and they will push and they will get into that follow-up system and that pending system so that they can get those 2 extra starts because they know it's going to take them from here to here. And, it's spring and everybody wants the new barbecue or the new patio set because we're all staying home and there's nothing else to spend our money on. So it's different strokes for different folks. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Some want a team outing. Well, right now that's not happening. Some want an incentive trip. Well, right now that's not happening. So I do find that the extra financial compensation does go a long way.
Nice. Really cool. All right. I mean, this has been awesome. I've learned a ton. I know it's going to help a ton of people out there. I just wanted to ask you, what's your biggest piece of advice? Where's the specialty going in the next 5 years? And what can doctors do now so that in 5 years they're thanking themselves and sitting pretty?
Well, where do I see orthodontics going? Where I see it going is small offices, 12 to 1,500 square feet. I see a lot of the pandemic protocols staying. So no brushing stations, checking in at your car. So small reception areas, those type of things. Probably leaner, so less staff. I see more virtuals. I see more online accessibility, more online bookings, more streamlined processes with your patients. I do see a more direct to consumer marketing coming, less dental referrals, as let's face it, dentists have been struggling and they are doing more ortho in their offices, whether that's themselves or whether they're bringing in a specialist to execute that treatment. They want to keep that internally. I think we absolutely have to be very mindful of how our patients or how the consumers are making decisions based on orthodontic treatment. That has changed significantly, and it is going to a more digital online platform. And we can't be assuming that all the referrals are going to be coming from a GP network. And I also believe that aligners are going to be, the market is just going to expand, internal printing, internal fabrication of aligners, Invisalign, other clear aligner therapy options. I think that that's where the growth is going to be. SDC, it's a reality. And I think people are looking for it. I think that's a market that people want. And if you research SDC, it's people that are going with it. They're going for convenience and these are educated people that are doing their research and they are making the decision to go that route. So that we need to ask ourselves, why? But all that being said, I do think orthodontics is just an amazing profession. If one of my 3 kids came to me and said, Mom, I want to be an orthodontist, I would encourage them every single step of the way. It's just the profession is going to be different going forward. Yeah. It's going to still provide you an amazing lifestyle, amazing balance, amazing financial return, all of those good things that we consider when we go into a profession or into a career. It's just going to be different, and it's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just different, but I'm still super excited about what the future holds and all the technology and everything that's ahead of us. So I really thank you for this opportunity to be part of this interview with you, Keith.
Yeah, I think we should title it something like the hybrid model of orthodontics. Like feel like we're going to, we've got a little bit of gas, but there's a lot of like eco fuel helping these practices forward, which is the virtual equivalent, right?
Absolutely.
Really cool. Thank you so much. Awesome to connect. I know this is going to help a lot of people. So thanks so much. And one more thing, if anybody's looking, they want to work with you or Strategix, you work with people in Canada as well as the US, correct?
Absolutely. You betcha.
Where can they
Yeah,
find?
you bet. Our website is Strategix, Strategix-LTD.com. You can get a hold of us through there. Email, text, phone, whatever is easiest. We are very easy to find.
Awesome. Really cool. Thank you so much, Lori, and we'll see you soon.
You bet. Thanks so much, Keaton. Have a great day.